Hey guys, got more stories for you. First one up is about a player that has a bit of a temper tantrum. So, I'm playing a homebrewed RPG with very simple rules, which doesn't really matter for the purposes of the story. The monsters are stereotypical D&D monsters for the most part, and there's only one player because no one else is available. The character traveled to a coastal city to consult the church about destroying a cursed candlestick, which she had found in a dungeon under a swamp near her home village. The nun and monk are organizing a ship to sail out to a nearby volcanic island and throw it in. And that's going to take a few days, probably. They suggest that the player goes and has a look around the city. Take a look at the gardens, statues, shops, and so on and so forth. But the player has no cash left. So the shops were of little interest. But gardens are nice. And while they were wandering around on the second day, their exploration of the city was interrupted by screams and fleeing townsfolk. She investigated and fought some ratmen. But during the fight, she got bitten. And once the ratmen were killed, some of the city guards finally showed up.
"Thanks,"
one said.
"Bloody ratman. Now, by the way, did you get bitten?"
"Yes."
"Oh dear,"
the guard said.
"You're going to turn into a rat. Woman. First fine hairs will grow on your face, and then your hands, and then you'll start to grow a tail. You'll feel a strong compulsion to devour cheese, and then your nose will get all pointy."
The player, not the character, screams at me, and then stomped out of the room, into the lounge, put a blanket over her head, and just screamed. No words. I tried to talk to her, but she's not listening. But I did manage to get some words in edgewise eventually. "Listen," I say grumpily.
"Two things. First, even if they were telling you the truth, you know I wouldn't do that to you. The priests would use healing magic or something. Secondly, the first guard starts laughing and the second one can't keep a straight face either, and they admit that they were trolling you."
Still angry, she grabbed a lap tray and tried to attack me with it, until I told her to stop or I would never play with her again. Frickin' 7-year-olds, man. What an absolutely toxic player, you know, you're just trying to DM and, you just have them attack you? They're lucky that they didn't have the cops called on them. But the DM isn't innocent either, you know, he didn't have a session 0, he didn't set expectations, he didn't ask, what the players would be comfortable with, like body horror or what kind of jokes, like whether or not the NPCs would be able to just outright lie to them. It's completely unreasonable. Like, the DM definitely needs to learn his lesson, and same with the player. Both of them are just, they're just bad for each other. And not to mention the fact that the DM was ever so kind enough to DM a solo session for this player. But I digress. The next one up is going to be about a character that was killed unceremoniously. It was game day, and the game was held at a friend's house that's in town an hour's drive away. I was on the highway that would normally take me there. I say normally because very shortly after I got onto that road, traffic came to a dead stop. So I pulled out my phone to see if Waze could tell me where the jam-up was, and if it could tell me an alternative route. The jam looked to be about 8 miles long, as there was a car accident. And yes, there was an alternative route. But it would take an hour and a half to get to where I was going. So I called my friend David and let them know that I was going to be late, and I explained why, sending him some of the pictures of the jam and where I was. I also explained how I was going to have to route myself through a town that's north of where he lives, and then come down, and that it was going to take an hour and a half to get to him. On top of however long it's going to take me to get out of the jam, since I was nowhere near any of the turnoffs that I could take to get back to the road that would actually take me the other way. I also told him to tell the DM to start the game without me and run my tune if we hit combat until I got there. David said that he would do that, so I hung up and concentrated on not losing my mind being stuck in this fustercluck. I was stuck in traffic for 40 minutes before I could get to my turn and start heading there. I texted David that I was clear of the jam and was finally on my way. When I finally got there, I was a little over 2 hours late to our usual 4-hour session. I knocked on the door, and my friend answered and let me in. But he had a look on his face that was concerning. The DM said,
"Well, you might as well not have bothered coming. Your character's dead."
I chuckled and said, "Well, dang. Tough combat?" And I looked at David. "You did remember the subclass abilities I had, right?" David said, "Well, we're still RPing the start of the quest. We were doing town downtime stuff and the quest came to us. We're talking with the nobleman to get the details and discussing payment." After he said this, I looked to the DM and said, Why am I dead then?"
"Well, because you were late. I'm tired of that crap, so I decided to start punishing people who were late."
"What the hell? Really? Who's done that in this group? Carl's the only one of us who was late to a session that I know of, and he had a good reason since some jackass ran him off the road and into a ditch. I've never been late before, and this time I was stuck in a frickin' traffic jam." So I pulled out my phone and pulled up Facebook. We have a guy in our area that listens to the police scanner and reports on what's happening on his Facebook page. So I pulled up his report on the 5-car collision on the road that I normally take. I also showed him the pictures that I sent David. So I asked him, "Didn't David tell you why I was going to be late?" He said yes, but then he went on how his other game, a Warhammer 40k game, had a bunch of people who were late constantly, and he put a rule of dealing with late characters into place, and how he's applying it to all of his groups. Not that he ever showed us this rule, but 1 hour late and you're suffering a penalty. 2 hours late and your character dies and you're out for the rest of the game. If you show up on time the following session, your party may be allowed to get your character resurrected when they get to a temple in a major city. But the cost comes out of your gold reserves, or you can submit a new character 1 level below your party's level. I coldly said fine, and then left. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to this weekend session or not. I'm kind of leaning towards hitting the LFG boards in my area. A pickup game at the FLGS is looking like it's the better option. My 2 cents would simply be never associate with this petty twat again. If he's willing to kill your character off because of a thing that you could not help, then who knows what other kind of crap that he might pull in the future. It's just unfortunate that you had to waste more than 2 hours to basically just immediately leave again. 2 hours to get there and then, you know, probably an hour and a half to actually get back home, so yeah, just screw that guy. But the next one up is about a guy that hasn't been able to do anything in combat for almost half a year. This one is still ongoing, but it's gone to a point where it stopped being funny a while ago. Not a full horror experience, but one of the most frustrating things I've experienced. This was a Pathfinder 1E campaign, so just keep that in mind. Around 2.5 years ago, I joined an already started campaign, as a substitute for another player. Being the newest member, I decided to adapt and fill in whatever role that the party needed. Most of them were frontliners and tanks, such as Inquisitor, Fighter, and a Paladin. Since the setting was not a gritty GOT low magic one, I asked if it was okay if I made a glass cannon spellcaster. The DM and the party both said that they liked it, so I got to work. Now, saying that the campaign was homebrew heavy would be an understatement. I'm not talking about hybrid or alternative classes, but more of the flavor of what Valda and Kibbles provide for D&D. I wasn't comfortable with the system yet, so I asked if it was going to be an issue if I played a raw build. The DM said that was perfectly fine, and that those classes were just flavor in case someone wanted to try something new, but it wasn't a requirement. Fast forward to our first fight. I was rocking less than half of the HP of the rest of the party. But I should be fine as long as I know how to position my character. Right? Wrong. Every single enemy would either spawn in combat right next to me, risk multiple opportunity attacks just to down me, or, the funniest example, the enemy just so happened to be hiding on the ceiling and dropped right on top of me, downing me before we even rolled for initiative. This got to the point where they would stand there and wait for someone to heal me so that they could down me again. They weren't single enemy fights. Most of them would rock 10 to 20 enemies, as well as a gimmick. So that meant that every time my turn was skipped in death saving throws, a good hour or an hour and a half would pass before it was my turn again, just to roll a death saving throw again. It started to dawn on me why every single player had a build that put them on the 3 digits of HP. When I asked my DM about the focus that I was getting, they responded with,
"Well, the enemy can see that you're a spellcaster, and they prioritize the person that can kill a lot of them easily."
which is very fair, but still didn't sit well with me. I brought up that I wasn't having fun, and that maybe I should just create a new character that fit the battle mechanics better. But they said that I was filling a necessary niche, and I was just unlucky. The Inquisitor and I started keeping notes as a joke of how many spells I would cast in combat. We noticed last session that the last time I did anything was on June 1st, thanks to a surprise round. I've been eating dust ever since. I don't plan on leaving the group because they are my friend group, and TTRPGs are honestly the only time that we can actually hang out together monthly without work or life being in the way. But it's getting hard not to astral project to a better game when combat rolls around, to be fully honest. OP, what niche are you supposedly filling here? Is the niche the punching bag? You have a fighter and a paladin. One of those two, if not both of them, should be the ones taking the brunt of most of the hits. Not you. I can understand not wanting to leave the group, especially if they are friends that you enjoy hanging out with and whatnot. So if you want to keep doing it, and you want to have fun, put your foot down. If your buddy, the Inquisitor, or anyone else in the party agrees with you that this is a little bit ridiculous, hold an ultimatum. Make this DM understand that you are not having fun, because that's simply ridiculous. I've had players get antsy for combat after 2 sessions without having any. Let alone you basically not having a single combat encounter where you've actually been able to do anything for almost half a year. That is simply ridiculous. You need to put your foot down, buddy, and speak up. But that's all I got for you today. If you would like more of my content, I have an educational channel, as well as an archival channel for my Twitch streams. You can also support me directly through Patreon. And I also take commissions for city and world maps for use in your own tabletop misadventures. But, as always, have a good one.
No. Sit your butt down. No. You. Sit. Sit your butt down. No. Sit your butt down. Stop. No. No. Cooper. Go on. No. Shit. No. No.